So welcome everybody. My name is Ruth Neighbors, and of course I'm joined by Dory Gray, and we're here to talk to you about reimagining your intranet, or as we put it, from chaos to clarity. And just a little bit about ourselves. We are a company of more than 12 years of experience, and we've launched more than 600 intranets and external customer communities combined with all the rest of the team. And our specialty is really transforming internal communications and employee engagement strategies through these various tailored intranet solutions. So there you go. In case you want to know how to spell our names and want to know what we look like, this is us. So here are some of the topics that we're going to cover. Wanted to spend a few minutes just talking about why do intranets underperform? And based on all our experience, some of the key things for your intranet program. We wanted to spend some time talking about how we would go about building an intranet roadmap and allow some time for Q&A. And of course, if you're watching this recording, we'll definitely let you know how you can reach us after the fact.
We
Especially.
also will have a couple of downloads for you to take away from today so you can continue to work on your intranet after this workshop ends.
Okay. So first topic, why do intranets underperform? Um, let's go with the first topic here. I think the first reason why they underperform, in my opinion, is that they're underinvested. Frankly, we see this a lot where organizations seem to think it should run itself with no truly dedicated intranet staff. And it reminds me of like we were working with a healthcare services company for quite a while. And the problem was that they actually had a previous webmaster, but then when that person left, there was absolutely no plan to replace the webmaster. And so the intranet just kind of limped along to the point that no one knew what functionality it had, and content was not really being updated. In fact, people didn't know how to update. And so when we checked in with them, they said, we need a new intranet. We need a totally new platform, but they hadn't invested in the original one at that point.
And when they went to the new platform, they didn't realize that a lot of the features they wanted, they could have already done with the original platform.
So next one, Dory, you want to take this?
Yeah. Governance is a big one. Little to no strategy for managing your intranet once you have it. We worked with an information security company and we helped them launch their new intranet. The people that we worked with for the launch ended up not being the same people that were involved in the day-to-day management once they were up and running. So what happened was no one knew how to post information. No new content got posted. No one even knew how to give people permission to post content. So their new intranet failed. And after 3 years, they went to another platform to just repeat their same mistake again.
Yeah. And this one, I just feel like the governance really, the considerations around there can be really challenging. And luckily, we're going to talk a little bit about how we'd like to see that change when you're planning. So the next topic really ties into if you underinvest and you really don't have any governance, then you have the outdated information. So there's this perception that even if there are things being posted on your intranet, the problem is your employees are not perceiving this as useful, and or they just think it's outdated because they can't be sure that they trust it.
Yeah, I work with a medical community of doctors, and they are completely underinvested. And the perception from employees is that this internet is not useful. It doesn't have the information I need. And the reason for that is that some teams will post their policies, some put their policies somewhere else. The communications person will post news, and that's pretty much it. Everything of value lives outside the internet. And whatever they try to do to fix that, it's too late because the employees already don't think it's a worthwhile place to go.
Yeah. Another problem that we've seen, well, frankly, every company we work with seems to have this problem. There's just too many tools. And with the variety of choices these days for sharing information, employees are really just spending a lot more time trying to figure out where to look. And it seems like this problem feels worse post-pandemic. And in many ways, I feel like Slack and Teams have very often become everything to many companies. but there are just so many other tools that allow employees to share status, to share track updates, et cetera. In fact, we've been working with one healthcare company that just has hundreds of quick links for all the applications that employees can use for their job. And it's just overwhelming. Dora, you want to take this one?
Yeah, so not the right platform now. Companies evolve, their needs change, and maybe your platform doesn't work anymore. We're working with a financial services company that we've worked for over 10 years now. And 10 years ago, when they launched their intranet, it was a good platform for them. That internet platform hasn't really progressed, but the company has, and they want new features and new functionality. And the only way for them to get that will be to switch platforms. They expend a lot of energy trying to make the current one work for them when it just isn't the right fit anymore.
Yeah. And then there's this whole thing with sort of like legacy baggage. This is another reason why we see intranets underperform, where teams are kind of replicating outdated or ineffective intranet practices. We see this where we're working on a project with company A, multiple companies where they have the best of intentions. They're trying to minimize the amount of change for their internal clients, going, just replicate this. It should be seamless. It shouldn't, but that's the wrong approach, because the reason why you picked a new platform often is there are more tools, there are more features, there are various things. So why would you try to recreate exactly what you have, look and feel, organization of information from your old site on the new, if it's not really the best way to run your intranet? And so you really need to spend time reimagining and redesigning this experience. And it takes time and effort. Sometimes you don't have that, but that is the challenge. So these are some of the many reasons. And of course, we'll be curious to hear whether other people have some favorite reasons why they think intranets underperform. But enough about talking about the problems. Let's kind of switch over and transition about some of the key things that we think you need for your intranet program. And in other words, yes, you need an intranet, but why do you need an intranet? I think that defining or even redefining your intranet's purpose is important. Because if you don't really have a good handle on what it's for, or frankly, what any of your suite of tools are for, it's hard to move forward with anything until you have this. You know the reason for being. So, um,
Yeah. So the first thing you want to do is you want to define your goals. Once you have that purpose, you got to focus on your goals. What is the number one thing that you want to achieve with your intranet? And that's where you're going to start. Intranets have many purposes. They're corporate communications, they're a knowledge base, they bring all of your tools into one place, employee business collaboration. And while you probably want to do all of those things, start with what is most needed in your organization.
mhm. And related to that, remember I was talking before about people under investing in the roles. We feel really strongly that you need a dedicated intranet manager role or team. It shouldn't just be part of many other things that you have to do. And just to kind of highlight, what exactly does an enterprise intranet manager need to have? This intranet manager really evangelizes and educates on the value and use of the intranet. They're the go-to person for onboarding new sites. They can help pull together an employee advocate group and provide any kind of orientation or mentorship around that. They're the one that really pulls together and supports subject matter experts or any other kind of content creators on best practices for content. Very importantly, they're monitoring adoption of the intranet and the platform. And if your intranet platform has a social component, they're the ones that are helping to encourage those discussions, facilitating them, even managing inappropriate use if that happens. And overall, they're just really trying to figure out like what is new, what is needed, monitoring what content is there and what needs to be retired. For all these various reasons, having a dedicated role for this does matter,
I also
especially
wanted to
this.
add to that that years ago, we saw a lot more dedicated internet managers than we do now. It seemed like it used to be a much more important priority for companies. And for some reason, over the last 10 years, probably since the pandemic, it hasn't been a priority. And we've seen a lot of internets failing as a result.
Maybe that's a topic for another webinar in the future, trying to
Yeah.
explain that in a little more detail. So, okay, related to that, I think Dory, I think this one is one you feel passionate about.
I do because so many times we work with companies and we mentioned this earlier, they don't even know what their internet can do. And this also ties into why you need someone or a team to manage it. Who is responsible for knowing your internet's functionality, tools, and features? It's not going to run itself, as we already mentioned. So the person that is in charge needs to be able to keep up with what's available. They need to attend webinars from their platform, read knowledge base articles. Maybe they have on regular touch bases with their CSM or a trusted partner. They also might want to talk to other employees or other companies rather using the same platform. And that's something that, at least for us, we learned a lot about the internets we work with just by speaking with other companies using it and hearing what they're doing. So you should really be involved as much as you can. Otherwise, your internet can fall behind. And one way to start with that is an assessment of your current state, a site and content audit to just get a sense of what your internet has and what you might need.
Yeah. And so related to that, besides reviewing your existing intranet functionality and tools and features, you are doing a gap analysis. And really, the question is, what's missing from your intranet that employees need? This can be accomplished through a variety of ways. Beyond the anecdotal observations, we do recommend doing a series of surveys, frankly, doing focus groups. And I guess the point here is that if you were producing a product for your customers, you wouldn't launch that customer product or even a service without research. So why would you treat your internal customers, your employees, differently with the product that they have, which is namely this intranet? So it should have the same focus and care. Personally, some of the things that have worked well for besides the surveys and focus groups, one thing I like to recommend to folks is you can easily once a week say, hey, you just want to interview one employee for half an hour and say, show me how you're using, how you're doing your job. If you got time to tell me what you're looking for on the internet, what are some of the common tasks? And you just watch them. And over the course of several months, even within 1 month, you'll have interviewed suddenly like, between 3 and 12 employees and gotten a better sense of how they're using it. Just because you're the expert on it doesn't mean you're the one that knows exactly how everybody else is using it. So frankly, ask your employees and do that analysis. And then around here, I think, Dory, you want to talk a little bit more about some of the strategy?
Yeah, so you definitely need strategy for governance, for content creation, and for the management of your platform. And creating that strategy, it doesn't have to be time intensive. Just outline processes on how you would introduce change to your internet, for example. For governance, identify the roles and responsibilities that are needed to keep your internet running. Who's creating the content? Who's responsible for making sure it's up to date and doesn't get stale? Which, by the way, that is the number one complaint of every single company with an internet is that they have content that is old and clogging up search results, and no one knows what is relevant and what's not. So figure out how you're going to ensure that content stays fresh. A lot of platforms, a lot of newer platforms can make that easy for you with setting end dates on content, but older platforms might not have that. So figure out the best way to go about that. Also figure out what policies and practices are needed to run your internet program and the cadence for any meetings or activities that you might have with a team of people that can help facilitate governance. And those people can be across the company from different departments if they're managing their content. It can be an advocacy group that just is passionate about the internet and wants to help you run it. There's different ways to get people involved. And when it comes to content creation, decide how often you want to review what's there, if you want to keep, archive, or delete. And back to managing the platform, this ties into what we said earlier. knowing just what's happening with the platform. What are the features? Is your platform being acquired by another company? Attend your CSM meetings and just keep up to date on exactly what's going on to make sure that your intranet is running smoothly.
So this number six, and this is the final one, and then we're going to talk about a roadmap. Aligning with leadership. Everyone knows they need to do this, but no one knows exactly how to do this, and it can be kind of challenging. But we found that the companies that have the strongest intranets are the ones that do have leadership involvement. They're demonstrating that they're using it as well. They're visibly there, they're present, particularly in intranets that have maybe a more social community engagement component. Um, we actually have a blog post on this that we'll share a little later that has a lot of specific tips that we think would work for a lot of you
Link is in the chat.
within the, yeah, oh, and it'll be also in the chat. But the bottom line is that you need your leaders using this, because then you can better make the case for here's why you need more improvements for the intranet. If they're the ones that have the hold the budget, being accountable and showing them the data and how an increased engagement and improved employee experience is connected with having a cohesive intranet platform matters. And we hope it would lead to further investment in the platform needs.
Yeah, I also want to add to that that we work with a lot of different intranets, and the ones that are most successful are always the ones that have leadership involvement, where the leadership cares or is active and posting content in some way. Those are the intranets that by far do the best.
Yeah. And by the mean, when we say like they're posting and they're visible, there is one I think medical pharmaceutical company we're working with where it's the CEO has regular videos every month. Video no, and these have just an incredible level of engagement, and it's both the online and of course in-person component as well. But it's kind of an extension of the culture that this leader sets the tone, and then there are other leaders who are also participating and doing their town halls that are shared very visibly on the intranet.
And one other example is I work with a financial services company, and the CTO, he isn't really big on posting, but he cares so much about the internet that he's always investing in the internet. He's always willing to spend money to make sure that the internet has the right features, that employees are using it, that it is up to their standards, and that internet does really well.
He asks a lot about what's next. so, so related to all this, with building an internet strategy roadmap, what do we mean by this? So, with all the things that we've been kind of talking about, putting together, whether it's a simple or complex roadmap, really helps you articulate a few things. You can really set out some clear goals and objectives for what you want short term or long term. And it kind of helps crystallize what you think your platform's for. And it's also just very useful as a visual to explain to others what it is that we're working on, what kind of new internet use cases you might roll out, and how you facilitate adoption of your platform. And of course, a good roadmap with that, you should be prioritizing some measurable outcomes. So just to give you an example, this is one that I think is somewhat generic, but applicable to a lot. And these are just some of the different topics. You can organize yours however you like, but typically we go with things that we want to focus on for look and feel, things we want to do around content, stuff around governance, change management. And here I just said other features, but if I was working with an actual client, it might have whatever initiative that they said, yeah, track this to as well. So, your phases can be however you want it to be. Phase one intentionally, I didn't say how many months it's going to take you to do. It'll be as long as you want, but usually a few months after you've kind of gone live and so on, this is how you might look. Story, you want to talk about this one a little bit?
Yeah, so one thing you definitely want to prioritize, especially in the beginning, is the UI UX. How does your internet look and feel? How does it function? How are people finding information? Your homepage and navigation are really important. What Ruth said earlier about watching people, how they use the internet, one key part of that is how are they navigating? Because chances are they're having a hard time finding information, and fixing the navigation, a little refresh will go a really long way. homepage redesigns. It doesn't have to be a huge redesign, but look at your data and make sure that your homepage reflects what people are looking for and what they want to do. Light site redesigns can also really help change the perception of your intranet, make it feel like a new, fresh experience for people, especially once you've made changes and want people to come to the new and improved version. Self-help design guides are also really great because it puts the power in your employees' hands for them to figure out what it is they need to do to make sure the internet works for them. And then, of course, always look into introducing any new features.
Yeah. Next thing I want to talk about is if you're particularly, it doesn't matter how old your intranet or how new your intranet is. You should be doing this where you're identifying information to archive, delete, or perhaps refresh. This content audit really matters, particularly if your employees are saying, "Hey, I don't know where to find these things." So if you prioritize that behind the scenes, and by the way, you don't have to do all these things all at the same time, but generally speaking, this is kind of the order we might think about identifying this. And once you know what you have, is there something you could be doing with your tagging, your metadata, how you're grouping the information? Depending on what platform you have, some of this might be important for how you surface the information on various pages. Um, some not entirely related, but a global content editorial calendar. We know that people managing intranets, a lot of different platforms, sometimes they have individual calendars, but they're not necessarily coordinated. So if you are going to be doing promotions of a lot of information, having something more standard could certainly help because then you'll be able to do a lot more with your content campaigns. And then another thing kind of related to this, I often recommend is standardizing how you actually write your information. This is part art, part science, but we find that content templates can be very helpful to particularly, and now with some of the platforms introduce sort of AI writing tools, even with that, you'd like to at least make it easy to be scanned on the web, how you look at the information. And so having a style guide helps a lot of people so they don't have to think so hard about how to write. And like I said before, a content audit process. These are just some of the things I kind of had this slugged under governance and change management more because they're sort of the functional, the operational strategy of it. Like how often are you going to do this? What can you do in terms of metrics? Even just sort of setting up your archive process, and of course, all the various things you can do to kind of continue gathering feedback and work with use cases. And there's a few other ones with governance. I forgot I had two lines here. Site request criteria. Often people, especially if it's sort of like like not a truly centralized approach, people are just kind of creating sites here and there. Being able to have a site request criteria, not only do you have criteria for what it is that you're going to archive, but also like what makes it into becoming a new site? Is it, and if you're using a lot of tools, what makes it to be a site versus say a Teams or Slack channel versus something else?
A really common problem internets have is lots and lots of sites or spaces or groups or whatever they're called in your platform that aren't being used. So having a form for people to fill out to explain exactly what they plan to do, who will plan to make sure it is maintained is crucial for making sure your internet is successful.
And then I think finally, I had these sort of in other features. I think, frankly, something that we've seen, particularly in the newer intranets, or even frankly the older intranets, everybody is curious about what other integrations you can have on your intranet. We know that employees are only spending a certain number of minutes on the intranet and then they're going off to do whatever task. So if that's the case, what are the things that they're actually using? Can those be integrated into your intranet, whether it's a learning management system or whether it's some kind of digital assistant bots to be able to start off certain kinds of processes for creating a ticket, putting in a request, whatever it might be. Do spend the time researching and figuring out what would make sense for your organization and then decide how you would actually roll them out.
And this
Um,
is especially important with all those different tools that people are using. The integrations can help bring them all into one place.
yeah. We threw in another one. Often, something that we actually see is a lot of companies that we work with are interested in employee recognition programs, and there are a lot of different ways to do it. Some of the platforms have it totally built in, and others do not. But if you're going to continue having engagement in your platform, then there should be some element of fun and recognition, and we think an employee recognition program is part of that. So these are just some of the different kind of examples. We actually do have like a little template you can download and
Link
fill
is in
out
the chat.
and give you some more examples. We're going to continue refining this. This is like sort of the simple version. There's a more complex version where you could have like a very long spreadsheet table that not only has each element, but then what you're going to do, all the various features and how you're going to measure it. So kind of in sum, there are a couple things that we also thought would be useful for people, and I think this is also going to be in the chat. Take your own diagnostic feedback form. We have a series of questions in this form that you can use to get started and to ask yourself what it is that you've to kind of sort of decide just what it is that you actually need to do more of and do next to support your intranet roadmap. So I think for those of you who are actually on the call, just kind of curious, do you have any questions about what we've said? I'm going to stop sharing here.
This is John. I have a question about search. So,
Yeah.
over the years, I've built and used a number of intranets in my company, and the one thing that seems to not have improved over the years was the ability to search. And we're so used to high quality search on the internet.
Mhm.
And so, have you seen any companies that have solved this really well, or any particular tools that are better than others for doing search? Because navigation's important, but also just being able to go in and find the thing uh, by searching.
I'll answer one of the ways that I've been seeing. So certainly some of the newer platforms we're working on have been doing, I don't know, integrations with more powerful search like Coveo, et cetera. But another way that I've seen people trying to tackle this problem is quite frankly with AI assistants. So digital assistants. So frankly, they're saying, you know what, we're going, or maybe it's like a Microsoft chat bot, like we're going to train this bot to ingest all the information, not only on our intranet, but on some other various platforms. And then when people are actually searching for something, it's kind of pulling back those answers based on like the training of that. That's where I see it going. It doesn't necessarily show up in the quote unquote search area, but it shows up as almost something separate built upon on top of the intranet. I don't know, Dory, what do you
Yeah,
think?
I also feel like a lot of companies complain about search, and sometimes their search really is bad. There are certain platforms that just aren't doing it well. And in other cases, it has a lot to do with the information on your intranet, having that old, outdated, stale content that is making the search experience really hard. But I'm definitely seeing a lot more AI integrated into search now, a lot more federated search being the norm where it used to be an expensive add-on. And I do think search is generally getting better with the newer platforms.
I think that's right. I think part of it is like all the stale content because I get things that are, years and years old. And so the whatever search engine they're using isn't taking into account the recency or not weighting it properly.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Yeah, the one platform I work with, you can actually fiddle with different kind of search algorithms, like give more weight to give to that. And every time I look at that platform, it makes my head hurt because I'm going,
It
okay,
does
so
work.
I'm reading some of these things, but is this going to give the information that I really want? And I'm a little more excited about some of these other newer tools with AI, where the idea of we work with one grants man, I think a nonprofit organization, and they trained it to like go through their intranet, but also their, I think, grants documentation and pulling stuff together from disparate sources. That's where I think is kind of interesting and exciting. I'm curious to see where they take it.
I'm also noticing that platforms are regularly updating and trying to improve on their search more than they used to.
Yeah, like you're seeing, it's true. And I should mention that we work on, I think, Allison, keep me honest, I think we work on 6 different intranet platforms for sure. So we're seeing quite a variety, but definitely that, yeah, there's more investment there.
The people definitely want to search one place and be able to see that information from all the different tools that they're using. So I think that is the biggest change that will keep happening.
Yeah. And then the companies that really put a priority on this, they are definitely putting, if their platform isn't quite doing it, they're putting money into doing the integrations. So you could certainly put that on the roadmap. It's like that could be, search enhancements. Um, Anything else you can think of?
No, I don't have questions, but this is very valuable because a lot of this happens where I'm searching and then I click and it's like 404 forbidden. It's like, well, maybe you should have taken away that link so that I didn't end up here to blank information. And I find that employees do have a difficult time digging in deep for the information. And it's funny because with disruptive technology, you would think that more companies would be putting more money into their systems to be more efficient and effective, and yet teams are seem to be decreasing in these areas. So it's
Yeah,
there, yeah.
yeah. But good food for thought, and maybe we'll like I said, this is kind of the first in what I hope is a series of webinars and maybe short takes on various things. So if you all, those of you watching now and those of you watching in the future, have suggestions for other topics you'd like to take, our hope is to probably do this maybe every other month, 30 minutes on any particular subject related to intranets. So great. Any final thoughts, Dory?
No, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks so much.
This was great. Thank you very much. Appreciate
Have a
it.
great day. And anybody watching the recording, there will be an email sent out with the links of what we shared,
Download.
some of the different downloads. Okay. All right. Take care. Bye.